Hello, this is Cynthia Sue Larson with RealityShifters.com, talking with you today about many worlds and instant manifestation. So I don't know about you, but I've been seeing a lot of increasing synchronicity, Mandela effects, and instant manifestation, especially recently. This week I was interviewed by Michael Sandler on Inspire Nation, and we had a wonderful conversation. At one point, he held up a feather in his right hand. It was a feather that he'd found recently when out hiking, and he'd been joking with his wife, Jessica, that maybe it was an eagle feather, or maybe he was actually serious about that. But for whatever reason, Jessica didn't think it was an eagle feather, and he said, okay, maybe it's a dodo feather. And the reason he mentioned that is because I'd been talking about bringing back the dodo, or seeing that the dodo bird is getting closer and closer to our reality, in a sense that maybe in some future experience of ours, we might notice it's never been extinct at all. We certainly are seeing the return of many other extinct plants and animals, some of them quite large. And we cover that frequently on the International Mandela Effect Conference, live streams almost every month, and then we've got an annual conference where we talk about these things. So that was interesting. Another example of this instant manifestation, besides me talking about dodos, and then that was exactly what Michael Sandler was talking to his wife about that very day. I recently was taking a walk last week, and it was a warm, sunny afternoon. I wanted to cross the street to the Shady Side. I noticed there was a lot more shade over there. So as I crossed and I was enjoying the shade, the very next vehicle I saw said something about the shade store, about your custom shade needs are all met. I'd never seen a vehicle representing that store before, ever, certainly not right there. And the fact that it happened within seconds of me noticing, oh, there's the shade, I'd like to get some shade right now, and then that's the next vehicle I see, the next sign that I'm reading, literally. So as these things go, they might not seem that huge, but when you add them up, these little things can add up to something huge easily. And often we may not be aware of just how synchronicity is factoring into our lives and how frequently we're experiencing instantaneous manifestation. We think it, we experience it. So I'd love to know if you guys are experiencing that. But this brings up a question that I've heard asked a lot lately, where people want to know, are we going to be splitting into two realities? Now that number two comes up, I think, for a number of reasons. But just to look at that, like, are there two literally different, separate realities? And this is an ontological question. So it's getting into the nature of reality itself, which is very philosophical. It helps us get a sense of does anything exist at all? How do we know that anything exists? How do I know that I'm not dreaming right now, for example? There are certain things that we sense and pick up, like the wind blowing through. I can look at my hands, they look like the hands that I've known before. If I'm in a lucid dream and I look at my hands, I might notice that I'm wearing jewelry I've never wear, or my hand might look completely different. So the hand check is a typical one to check it, to see if you're dreaming. And it's not as weird as it sounds, especially nowadays, because things are changing pretty fast for a lot of us. So this question, are we living in two worlds? Some people would reassure you, oh no, we're not. And they would say so because that would be the ontology, where very much like a TV or a radio, you would tune your device into a number of different frequencies and pick up the different realities. So with that parable or that metaphor, you can then imagine that there's only one TV set, only one radio. But even then, I would say probably there's more than one, just based on what I've seen. I've seen too many flip-flops in particular, where it seems like I'm in one reality, then I'm in another, back and forth. You could say, oh, you're just changing channels in realities, maybe. But then we also have some more evidence, and that evidence would come in the form of the Hopi prophecy rock, where clearly there are two lines carved in stone, one that kind of looks good for a short while and then it peters out, and then the line that goes below it that stays connected, and the people continue to thrive. They go around the corner on the stone, and even the elderly with their walking staffs and the people who are not in that good shape, they make it just fine. So it's interesting to see that that was depicted after the great shakings, which some people interpret as World War I, World War II. So this prophecy rock was carved well in advance of any of that happening. It was meant as some sort of a prophecy of sorts, obviously. And then in the Bible, we've got the passage that some of you may know. That's Matthew 13:24 through 30 in the King James edition. And this is where Jesus Christ was talking about the wheats and the tares. And this is an example of comparing a field of grain to the kingdom of heaven, and saying that there was the story, the parable about a man who was sowing wheat seed in his field, but while he slept, some enemy came in and sabotaged the field, putting in tare seed, which is not the same as wheat, and it's not as nutritious. And so people wondered what to do about this contamination. In other words, if they pull the seeds out, it'll damage the wheat crop. And the farmer was saying, no, let's let everything grow. We can sort it out when we do the harvest, and then we'll destroy those that do not fit. Now, when people listen to that, that's, I think, where some of the fear comes in about the two worlds. Like, what about the people, and also the Hopi prophecy rock, what about the people on that line that peters out? What about the field of tare, the tare plants that got planted by mischief or what have you? Will there be some people that don't make it through to this future reality? Those are good questions, and it seems to me that we've all got free choice, that individually we're working to do that frequency thing. So what is the other option? The other option would be what I mentioned, that the many worlds of the multiverse, many worlds of quantum physics being one and the same as the multiverse. We could take that and map that onto the frequency idea of operating a TV, operating a radio, tuning it in, letting ourselves be the antenna, recognizing that when we're feeling joy and love and kindness and happiness and gratitude, that we're in a very good place, capable of rising above the drama, rising above just petty differences and all sorts of things that might otherwise crop up. And so that would be, a very good way to navigate the situation where all the different realities are available to us and we're surfing through them. What comes in at that point, though, is a little bit of this idea of solipsism. It's another philosophical idea. This one means that I'm the only one running the whole world, basically. That because of my mood, it's affecting you and your family and people that you know, which might sound crazy. And to a lot of us, it doesn't sound exactly right. A lot of us would say, but wait a minute, I'm not the only consciousness here. I have family, I have friends, I've got nature. This is real. I can relate to a tree, to the grass, to the birds, to the gophers, to the insects, ladybugs and the butterflies. So if I can relate to all those, and they're not just me, because that would be the solipsism, where as I create, then everything around me is as I will or as I wish. Some of us don't feel like we're quite ready for godhood yet, and we understand that there's a lot more going on in the cosmos than we're fully conscious of or capable to run. So in that case, if we throw solipsism out, then we're back to considering there may be more than one world. There may be many. Certainly two is certainly not too big of a stretch to contemplate. So if we're looking at the combination then of two or more literal realities plus the frequency surfing, the channel surfing, if you will, that starts getting really interesting. And then, of course, I'd love to ask my favorite question, how good can it get? To bring in and introduce the idea that no matter what's happening, even if I don't consciously know what's going on, that somehow I'm supporting myself and the goodness of everyone and everything else. Because I know that it's not good enough for me to just get whatever I think I need. That would be very self-limiting, short-sighted, and I sincerely believe it would be a mistake. So therefore, I'm not going to fall into the trap of solipsism or just doing magical practice based on some lower egoic level of conscious agency, but rather, I would like to wish for what's best for all concerned. So how do we do that? Good question. And if we look at the two ideas, maybe we're doing both. There are literally more than one physical reality. and we're surfing the frequency waves every day as we navigate through it, doing our very best to stay positive despite whatever the day's challenges might be. And again, I'd like to look back at the Hopi prophecy rock for some clues as to how to do this. Because if you consider the upper line, that's the line that peters out. And it shows that at first everything looks pretty good. There's sort of a steady progress, and the people going forward look like they're marching along. But if you look closely, you'll notice their heads are coming off of their bodies. They're separating. And there's the clue. So if we're only using our heads and we're going based on what we think we want, that would be that low-level magical practice of I've got mine and I'm not helping out my neighbors or people that vote differently or look different or anything like that. That's a huge mistake. If I am judging people based on something that I think is so important, well, then I'm making a pretty classic error according to that Hopi prophecy rock. Because the Hopi are inviting us to stay connected to our heart center and to our gut feelings. How do we do that and not get angry if people are voting differently, thinking differently, dressing, eating, behaving differently? Well, that's up to our higher self and recognizing that we are all as one. We are connected. There's no reason to fight, even if we're being told we should be hating someone because of how they vote or what they believe and so on and so forth. And that's what I'm going to say is that's just flat out wrong for the heart and it's wrong for the gut. And when you know that, you start feeling like, okay, I'm starting to get it. So I'm being invited then to challenge myself to love and be kind to even people that I'm scared of or I feel threatened by. Yes, that's exactly what it's saying. And maybe at some point we'll meet our extraterrestrial family as well. They're probably going to look extremely different. And it's important, again, to come from the heart and recognize there, by the grace of God, go I. I might have been born like that in some other completely different life form, on a completely different dimensional existence, and so on and so forth. Because they probably don't perceive reality the way we do. Anyway, I hope that's clear. I hope that that makes sense. And this, to me, is the path forward to the Golden Age, to the road to Shambhala, to the New Earth. And so this is how we do it, one person at a time, joining together. And I'm hearing about people around the world starting to do that, overcoming differences, recognizing maybe the powers that be or the world governments are trying to get people to fight each other. Maybe we don't want to fight each other. So maybe the most radical thing we can do in such a situation is to be optimists, to be grateful, joyful, kind, loving, and creating this new world. It's not stupid, it's not foolish. It may sound that way, but it takes a lot of work, and it's inner work. And then we start looking like the path that does go all the way forward and around to the next epic on the Hopi prophecy rock, where the people's heads are connected to their bodies. And they have the advantage of bringing the spiritual connection and inspiration all the way into their being and changing, learning, growing, and doing and thinking new ways and new things. And I'm pretty certain that we may see an evolutionary step forward into maybe more of our light bodies, so that we don't need to consume plants and animals as much. It seems like a lot of us are not eating as much. In the past videos, I've talked about witnessing sparkles in the air sometimes, and seems like I'm getting slightly impervious to sunburn and boiling hot water burns. So this is an interesting time to be alive. And I can't think of a better time to be asking with you, how good can it get? So until next time, let's keep asking that. And I love you so very much. Take care.